The planet was quiet, but in the kind of way that made your skin crawl. Snow whipped across the frozen landscape, piling in drifts that sometimes swallowed a man's knees. Jack trudged through it, each step heavy with the weight of his boots and the chill that seemed to pierce straight to his bones. He pulled his jacket tighter, rubbing his gloved hands together, trying to stay warm. Most of the expedition had gone ahead to secure supplies from the research outpost, leaving him alone for a brief scouting mission. He wasn't supposed to wander far, but something had caught his attention earlier, something soft and high-pitched in the wind. At first he thought it was just the storm playing tricks on him. The winds made strange sounds as they tore across the icy ridges, but as he moved closer to the ridge's edge, he heard it again, a faint cry, almost like a child calling for help. Jack froze. It was unusual to hear any living being out here, and even more unusual for something so small to survive the cold. His instincts kicked in. He scanned the area, eyes squinting through the falling snow, and finally, he saw it. A tiny shape huddled against a rock, shivering violently. It was small, no taller than a human toddler, and its skin shimmered faintly in the dim light of the storm. Its wings fragile, translucent, and barely moving hung limply at its back. The little alien looked up at him with enormous eyes that glowed faintly, like tiny lanterns in the snow. Jack's heart tightened. Despite the creature's strange appearance, there was something unmistakably vulnerable about it. He couldn't leave it out here. He approached slowly, speaking softly, even though he doubted she would understand. "Hey, it's okay. I won't hurt you." The alien girl flinched but didn't run. Her glowing eyes studied him carefully, as if measuring whether he was dangerous. Jack knelt down, keeping himself low to appear less threatening. "Here," he said, pulling off his scarf. He wrapped it gently around her tiny shoulders. The instant contact caused a tiny burst of warmth to flicker across her skin. She squeaked softly, a sound almost like the chime of a bell in the storm. Her wings fluttered slightly, but she didn't fly away. Instead, she looked at him, her glowing patterns shifting in quick flashes. Jack had no idea what it meant, but he felt the urgency in the movement. She was trying to tell him something. Jack knew he couldn't leave her here. He scooped her up carefully, holding her close to his chest. She fit perfectly in his arms, small enough that the wind didn't seem to reach her through the layers of clothing and scarf. As he walked back toward his tent, he realized how fragile she truly was. Her glow dimmed slightly in the cold, and he feared she might not survive long without warmth. By the time he reached his camp, snow had piled higher against the tent, and the wind was so strong it rattled the thin metal poles. Jack opened the flap and stepped inside, closing it behind him. The tent was warm, though not entirely comfortable. He quickly started the small heater, watching the flames flicker in the glass window. Then, he gently placed the alien girl on a blanket. She curled up, trying to hide, but her glowing eyes never left him. Jack offered her some protein rations, though he wasn't sure she would eat human food. To his surprise, she sniffed at them curiously, then nibbled a small piece. He smiled, feeling relief wash over him. Small gestures, he realized, could mean a lot when life itself hung in the balance. Hours passed slowly. Jack studied her as she slowly warmed up. She was delicate, almost ethereal, with wings that seemed too fragile to survive a fall, and skin that glimmered faintly in patterns he couldn't understand. He had never seen a species like this, and the more he looked, the more he realized how intelligent she seemed. Her eyes weren't just curious, they were calculating. She watched him, learning, gauging his movements, almost as if she were trying to understand the human mind. "Do you understand me?" he asked softly, more to break the silence than expecting an answer. She tilted her head, wings flickering with a soft pulse. Then she reached out a tiny hand and touched his gloved fingers. Jack felt a shock, not painful, but strange, like a warmth spreading through his body that had nothing to do with the heater. The sensation was fleeting, but enough to make him pause. He could feel a connection forming, one that went beyond words. He realized then that she wasn't just a survivor. She was special. Her glow, her movements, even her gestures seemed to carry energy that humans had never seen before. He began to wonder if her species had abilities he couldn't yet comprehend. Powers hidden beneath their fragile appearance. The storm outside intensified. Snow piled against the tent walls, and the wind howled like a predator circling its prey. Jack knew they couldn't stay here forever. He had to get her to the main camp, where the other humans could study her safely, away from the dangers of the planet. But he also knew that moving her in this weather was risky. One slip, one wrong step, and they could both be lost to the cold. Still, he couldn't ignore the signs. The alien girl's eyes flickered with urgency, and her tiny wings trembled as she moved closer to him. She wanted to go. She trusted him. And more than that, she needed him. Jack made his decision. He wrapped her in a thicker blanket and lifted her carefully. Her small weight surprised him lighter than he expected, almost as if she had no mass at all. As he stepped outside into the blizzard, he felt the harsh cold cut through his jacket. But he held her close, keeping her warmth inside the layers. She clung to him instinctively, wings fluttering slightly. He realized she was relying entirely on him for survival. The journey to the main camp was treacherous. Snowdrifts hid dangerous crevices, and the wind threatened to knock him off balance. But the tiny alien girls seemed to sense danger, twitching or flashing patterns of light whenever they neared a hazard. Jack followed her cues, moving cautiously. Despite her small size, she had an instinct that surpassed his own, guiding them safely through the storm. As they walked, Jack spoke softly, telling her stories of Earth, of warm forests and oceans, of nights spent under stars that burned bright in the human sky. The alien girl responded in her own way, flickering colors in rapid sequences and letting out tiny chimes that resonated strangely in the tense silence. Jack didn't understand the language, but he understood the emotion. She was curious. She was cautious. And slowly, she was trusting him. Hours seemed to pass in moments as they made their way to the main camp. Jack's boots were caked in snow, his face raw from the wind, but he didn't notice. He only noticed her small hand occasionally brushing against his chest, sending tiny pulses of warmth into him. It was more than companionship. It was a connection that neither of them fully understood, but both felt deeply. When they finally reached the camp, the other humans rushed out, shocked to see the tiny alien girl in Jack's arms. She glowed faintly, her patterns flashing rapidly as she examined them. Jack set her down gently on a safe mat near the tent. Scientists and researchers hurried over, asking questions, measuring, and scanning her. But Jack felt something different. He didn't see just a specimen. He saw intelligence, courage, life that was far more complex than appearances suggested. He knelt beside her, whispering softly, "You're safe now. I promise." She looked at him, eyes glowing steadily this time, and let out a soft, musical sound that Jack felt in his chest more than heard. It was a sound of relief, of trust, and he thought of thanks. Even in the warm tent, Jack could feel the tension in the room. Everyone was fascinated by her, but he noticed her comfort only came from him. She had chosen him, in a way, and he knew this bond was rare, special. It wasn't just about saving a life. It was about understanding, about trust, about a connection that could bridge worlds. Night fell over the frozen planet, and the storm outside began to calm. Jack stayed with her, watching as her glow dimmed slightly in sleep. He realized that despite the dangers, despite the unknown, he had made a choice he would never regret. She had come into his life unexpectedly, tiny and fragile. Yet she had changed everything about how he saw the universe. He leaned back, exhausted but alert, knowing that the next day would bring questions, discoveries, and perhaps even more danger. But for now, he allowed himself a rare moment of peace. The alien girl slept quietly, trusting him completely. And Jack understood in that quiet moment that sometimes the smallest beings could make the biggest difference. The wind outside whistled through the frozen landscape. But inside the tent, there was warmth. A fragile warmth, glowing faintly in the form of a tiny alien girl. And the promise of a bond that might change everything humanity thought it knew about life in the universe. The storm had finally passed, leaving a quiet, icy stillness over the planet. Jack had barely slept, keeping a watchful eye on the tiny alien girl. She had spent the night curled under blankets, her glowing patterns dim and calm. But he could tell she was alert, even in sleep. Her small chest rose and fell steadily. Yet every now and then, her wings twitched slightly, as if she were sensing things Jack could not. By morning, the first pale light of the planet's sun crept across the horizon. It reflected off the snow in a dazzling array of colors, but Jack barely noticed the beauty. He had more pressing concerns. The main camp was not entirely safe. Hostile wildlife and scavengers roamed the frozen terrain. And even with other humans around, the tiny alien girl could not remain exposed for long. Jack prepared for the next stage of their journey. Moving her back to a safer base several kilometers away, she had been quiet all morning, watching him carefully as he packed supplies. Her wings fluttered occasionally, casting soft, glowing patterns on the snow-streaked blankets. She seemed almost aware of the journey ahead, adjusting herself with tiny, deliberate movements. Jack marveled at her intelligence. She was small, but she understood more than most humans he had met in years of exploration. When he finally lifted her into his arms, she did not struggle. Instead, she pressed herself against him, her glow pulsing faintly. Jack felt it again, the warmth, not from her body, but from the strange energy radiating from her. It made the biting cold more bearable, almost comforting. He wrapped her in his jacket and began the careful trek across the frozen wasteland. At first, the path seemed simple. Snow stretched endlessly in all directions, dotted with jagged ice formations. Jack focused on placing each step carefully, scanning for weak ice or hidden crevices. The alien girl's small hand occasionally brushed against his chest, and each time he felt a pulse of energy ripple through him. It was subtle, but noticeable. He realized that somehow, she was more than just physically fragile. She was powerful in ways humans could barely understand. Hours into their journey, the danger revealed itself. A pack of native scavenger creatures appeared on the ridge ahead. They were large, covered in thick fur, with claws and teeth capable of tearing through metal. Jack froze, evaluating the situation. He was outnumbered, and the creatures were fast, their glowing eyes tracking him and the tiny alien girl. Jack knew he had only seconds to act. He shifted the girl slightly, keeping her behind him, and reached for his stun rifle. But before he could aim, she reacted. Her glowing patterns brightened dramatically, flashing in rapid sequences. Then, without warning, a soft energy field spread outward from her tiny body. It was invisible at first, but the air seemed to shimmer. The scavenger skidded to a halt, yelping and snapping at the invisible barrier. Jack watched in astonishment as the field held them back. They could not reach him, or the girl. Even the largest and most aggressive of the creatures hesitated, then backed away slowly, sensing the strange power she emanated. Jack lowered his rifle, still in shock. He had seen some strange alien abilities in his career, but nothing like this. She was tiny, delicate, almost fragile, but she commanded a power far beyond her size. The alien girl looked at him briefly, her glowing eyes steady and focused. Then she fluttered slightly, moving as if to encourage him forward. Jack didn't hesitate. He followed her guidance, carefully stepping around the edge of the ridge, avoiding hidden dangers. Her energy field flickered softly as they moved, protecting them from the scavengers and any unseen threats hidden beneath the snow. By midday, they reached a safer plateau. Jack set her down gently, letting her hover slightly above the snow, using her delicate wings. She seemed to enjoy the freedom, glowing softly as she rose a few inches, then gently floating alongside him as he continued the journey. Jack had never seen a creature so small move with such confidence and control. She was teaching him in her own way how to survive in this harsh world. During the trek, Jack tried to communicate with her more deliberately. "I'm Jack," he said, voice soft but steady. "I'm human. I'm not going to hurt you. I promise." The alien girl responded with a pattern of flashes and tiny musical tones. At first, it was meaningless to him. But as the hours passed, he began to notice a pattern. The flashes seemed to correspond to his emotions, or to the direction he was walking. Slowly, Jack realized she was not just responding, she was guiding him, warning him of danger and sharing information in a way humans were not accustomed to. as the day wore on. They came to a ridge that overlooked a wide valley. The base they sought was visible on the other side, a cluster of metallic structures built into the icy cliffs. Relief surged through Jack. They were close. But as they began the descent, the ground beneath them trembled. A massive predator, larger than any scavenger they had encountered, emerged from the snow. Its body was covered in icy plates, and its glowing eyes fixed on them. Jack's heart pounded. There was no way he could outrun it with the tiny alien girl in his arms. He froze for a moment, but the girl reacted instantly. Her glow intensified, flaring brighter than Jack had ever seen. Then, an invisible force spread outward from her, pushing back the massive predator. The creature roared in frustration, trying to move forward, but the force was too strong. Jack's jaw dropped. She was small, yes, but she wielded power that could alter the very physical world around her. He watched as she hovered, her wings fluttering, directing the energy field with precision. The predator finally gave up, retreating back into the snow. Jack exhaled deeply, barely believing what had just happened. The alien girl turned toward him, her glow softening, and let out a gentle chime. It was almost like she was smiling. Jack smiled back, feeling a mix of awe and gratitude. By late afternoon, they reached the base. The humans stationed there rushed to meet them, eyes wide with disbelief at the tiny glowing creature in Jack's arms. Scientists began scanning her immediately, speaking in rapid tones that Jack barely followed. But he noticed something important. She remained calm, focused, and glowing faintly, as if aware of her new audience. She did not flinch or panic. Instead, she seemed to assert herself, showing them that her power was not to be underestimated. Jack knelt beside her, whispering, "You did it. We made it." She responded with a small flash of light, almost as if nodding. The researchers were fascinated, taking readings and measurements, but Jack could see that their attention was focused more on the data than on the life they had just protected. He gently took her hand, feeling the tiny warmth pulse once more. Over the next few hours, the scientists asked Jack countless questions, trying to understand her abilities, her biology, and her communication patterns. Jack realized that while their curiosity was natural, they were missing something essential. This tiny alien girl had survived in conditions that no one thought possible. She had demonstrated intelligence, strategy, and the ability to protect not just herself, but him as well. She had chosen to trust a human, and in return, she had revealed strength far beyond her size. That night, Jack sat beside her again. The lab was quiet, the hum of machines in the background, but she seemed to respond to his presence more than anything else. He spoke softly, telling her about Earth, about forests, oceans, and the warmth of a summer sun. She responded in her own way. A series of soft flashes and musical tones that Jack had begun to interpret as curiosity, amusement, or understanding. For the first time, he realized something remarkable. The tiny alien girl was more than just a survivor or a specimen. She was a teacher. She was showing him that size and appearance mattered little when courage, intelligence, and trust were involved. She had taught him how to navigate danger, how to trust instincts, and how even the smallest beings could wield immense power. Jack felt a deep respect for her, and a strange pride as well. He had saved her from the cold, but she had also saved him in ways he could not fully articulate. They had survived together, not as protector and dependent, but as partners navigating a harsh world. The bond they had formed was rare, powerful, and unspoken, connection that transcended words. As the night deepened, the tiny alien girl finally rested, curling up in a blanket. Her glow dimmed, soft and steady, filling the room with a gentle light. Jack leaned back in his chair, exhausted but content. He thought about the day's events, the storm, the predators, the unknown dangers, and realized that he had witnessed something extraordinary. This tiny creature, fragile in appearance but mighty in action, had changed him. She had shown him that life, no matter how small or different, could shine with incredible force. She had reminded him that humanity's true strength lay not just in technology or weapons, but in the ability to care, to protect, and to understand. He looked down at her. The tiny alien girl sleeping peacefully beside him, and felt a sense of hope. The universe was vast and dangerous, full of unknown threats, but it was also full of life, courage, and unexpected allies. Jack knew that this was only the beginning of their story. Together, they had survived the impossible. Together, they would face whatever else this frozen world had in store. And in that quiet, glowing moment, Jack understood something profound. Sometimes, the smallest beings could teach the greatest lessons. And the bonds formed in the harshest conditions could last far longer than any storm.